A reading from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. Brothers and sisters, strive eagerly for the greatest spiritual gifts, but I shall show you a still more excellent way. If I speak in human and angelic tongues, but do not have love, I am a resounding gong or a clashing cymbal. And if I have the gift of prophecy and comprehend all mysteries and all knowledge, if I have all faith so as to move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away everything I own, and if I hand my body over so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It is not jealous, love is not pompous. It is not inflated, it is not rude. It does not seek its own interests. It is not quick-tempered. It does not brood over injury. It does not rejoice over wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. If there are prophecies, they will be brought to nothing. If tongues, they will cease. If knowledge, it will be brought to nothing. For we know partially, and we prophesy partially. But when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I used to talk as a child, think as a child, reason as a child. When I became a man, I put aside childish things. At present, we see indistinctly as in a mirror, but then face to face. At present, I know partially. Then I shall know fully as I am fully known. So faith, hope, love remain, these three. But the greatest of these is love. The word of the Lord.
St. Paul tells us about the greatest gift, love. If he has the gift to speak in tongues or to prophecy, or even if he's called to give away everything he owns and hand himself over for bodily torture, if he does any of it without love, he has nothing, he gains nothing, he is nothing, and he's a resounding gong or clashing cymbal. He becomes an annoyance. You have all the most magnificent gifts, the flashiest spiritual experiences that wind up being some kind of magnet for attention. If they're done without love, they're just obnoxious. If it becomes about the self, if it becomes about a show, if it becomes about attention, if it becomes about anything else besides the gift of oneself in love, then it is pompous and inflated and rude and seeks its own interest. It's quick-tempered, it's easily insulted, it's all these things. But it's not love. Right? Love's the greatest of all the gifts. Whatever your gifts are that you are naturally talented with, that God has given to you, whatever kind of skills you've developed by hard work and discipline, whatever virtue you have, without love, it's pretty worthless. So how do we attain love? How do we get the gift of love? How does that work? So the great thing is love isn't some sort of like falling into love thing that has to happen. I mean, you can make that argument too. Primarily, it's a decision, right? It's an act of the will. It's a giving of the self as gift that's unconditional in its highest form, that's not expectant of anything back in return. There is a kind of falling in love with God that I think is important. It's a little bit different than the kind of emotional head over heels thing that happens between, the boy meets girl kind of situation. But I wouldn't want to downplay the great importance of experiencing, well, I guess now that I think of it, is exactly what Paul's saying at the end of the letter, to see God face to face. That what we have now is something that's very partial. and it matures into something that's whole, and will never be so complete as our first day in heaven. Everything that was left undone will be made whole. Everything that was still healing will be healed. Every part of us that was still growing will fill out. At present we see indistinctly as in a mirror, but then face to face. Now I know partially, then I shall know fully as I am fully known. The other thing that I would like to say about love has to do with what Luke is saying in the gospel. John the Baptist comes and he fasts, and they call him possessed by a demon. And Jesus comes as the bridegroom, and so he celebrates eating and drinking, and they call him a glutton and a drunkard. These are the people who can't help but to always look for the worst in a situation. That to love also means to see the best, to look for the best, to acknowledge what's good. How do we attain love? I think a good place to start is gratitude. It's been said that if you could only say one prayer in your whole life, that the best one might be just to simply say, thank you. Additionally, how do we attain this great gift of love? Well, it's not something that you have to work super hard for. It's a gift. We ask for it. That we are but beggars before God. It's not a bad thing. That we find ourselves in spiritual poverty, and that's good news for us. That's a beatitude for us because He is wealthy and generous in spiritual things. He wants to provide these things for us. He wants us to seek and knock and ask for the things that we need. And so to ask Him first to love us, knowing that He is always already about the business of pouring out what is perfect and infinite in His love for us. That before we ask, it's already on its way in every moment. And that all we need to do to be able to receive it is to kind of like slow ourselves down and to make ourselves aware that it's already here. All that we need to do to receive it is to take on a receptive posture of our spirit. Knowing, I think part of what gets in the way of us feeling God's love sometimes is that we're too busy trying to earn it, work for it. It doesn't come about that way. It's not how the meeting of God face to face happens. How do we attain the gift of love? We receive it and we're transformed by it. And then the call to love others becomes something of just sharing with others what's already been given to us. It's not something that has to be too dependent on me. It doesn't have to be something that I have to, be super, I don't have to recreate the wheel in order to love others well. Faith, hope, and love remain these three, but the greatest of these is love. Why is it the greatest? It's love never fails. It will never cease. Hope. You don't have to hope for what's right in front of you. You don't have to have faith when you can see face to face. But love is what God is. When you encounter the living God, you have this perfect encounter with perfect love. It starts drawing us closer to that heavenly reality. It starts to heal us and fill us out and complete us and make us more whole than we were before. That as we are filled up with love, that becoming God's love for the world means that God's love is in us and it overflows to others. It becomes, in a way, it becomes rather effortless. Are there still times when we have to dig deep and really choose to be loving? Of course. Allow God to love you. Allow that love to be extended to others.